G'day guys, and welcome back to another build guide. Today I'm going to be showing you the Delirious Explosive Leap Champion. This is a Leap Slam bleed build. We are going to be jumping around, causing lots and lots of explosions, while also not taking a whole lot of damage thanks to the brand new bloodlines introduced in this league. First, let's check out the skills and the gear, and then we'll move on to the passive tree. Before we continue, please leave a like and subscribe if this is helpful to you, and the full written build guide will be in the description below, as well as the pinned comment. Let's get into it. First of all, we want a really good axe. Best you can get, as much physical damage as possible. Please ignore that explicit lightning modifier magnitude. I'm still trying to roll physical on that bad boy. The most important stat here is the hits with weapons have Culling Strike against bleeding enemies. This is a must-have for the axe, along with as much damage as possible. Moving over to the helmet. This is basically just a elemental and life dump. Get as much elemental resistances and life on there as possible. Of course, increased armor is always good. Another dump item we have is the boots. Apart from the default movement speed, which you should always get on boots, we just have loads and loads of resistances. Now, on to the gloves. Gloves are a little bit different. We want spell suppression as much as possible. That will help us with the incoming damage from spells as we go deeper into the end game. You're also going to want to grab 40% increased damage while leeching. We are going to be leeching all the time, which means we cannot do no leech maps. Keep that in mind. Moving over to the ring. Again, like the other ones, we want to add lots of resistance, lots of life, but there is two very important roles that we must have on the ring. That is physical attack damage leech as mana, and non-channeling skills have -7 to total mana cost. The reason we have these is because we are using loads of auras, and we want to be able to use our Leap Slam 5 consecutive times in a row right after a war cry. Now that it can add up very quickly mana wise, so we want as much utility when it comes to mana usage and mana gain. Moving over to the amulet, we have Inveterate as the anointment. This is plus 15% chance to suppress spell damage, plus an additional 3% of suppressed spell damage, which it's awesome. The plus 15% will just help us with our gearing and of course help us with those spells that are incoming. On to the belt. This is a classic Slather's Coil. This is pretty much a go-to for any physical build, and definitely any bleed build. We want as much physical damage going out as possible to turn into those sweet bleed damage over time. And on to the other ring slot, we have Circle of Guilt, another staple for a physical build. For this one, we want to have Herald of Purity has percentage increased mana reservation efficiency and percentage increased physical damage while affected by Herald of Purity. Those two are important. Obviously, increased damage is a no-brainer, but the reservation efficiency helps us keep our auras up and running. Right, on to the chest piece. Chest piece, much like everything else, we want to focus on resistances, but the chest piece is also the point where we can get the most defenses out of it. So we want to get as much physical defense as possible, so evasion and armor I've gone with here, but you can just go flat evasion or flat armor, whatever will be the highest. I've also gotten lucky here and got an increased global physical damage roll. Not necessary, but the necessary one here is the suppress spell damage once again. We want as much spell suppression as possible, because that is the thing that's going to kill us, honestly. The hits won't kill us, it'll be the spells. Right, we have covered the weapon, the helmet, the amulet, the ring, 2 rings, gloves, belt, and boots. Now, for the flasks, I just have a urgent flask, instant recovery when on low life, and 50% reduced recovered. I also have grants immunity for bleeding, just for a quick removal of bleeds. Moving over here, we have the increased charge recovery with the extra armor. I was lucky to get a 0.5% of attack damage as life during effect on this one, but not really necessary. Just try to get the increased charge recovery on all your flasks, because that just means when it's paired with used when charges reaches full, these proc a lot more often. Over here we have the quartz flask, additional suppress spell damage and phasing, which means we don't get stuck on enemies, which is so lovely. Moving over, we also have the onslaught flask. This is additional increased armor during effect. Good stuff, makes us a little bit more tanky. And then of course we have the quicksilver flask, which increases movement speed, oddly enough. Future Shin here, or past Shin, we forgot to cover the grafts. So here we are, let's cover them right now. We want to grab the hardening graft with damage over time multiplier. Very important. And it gives us a tender embrace, which is literally a lifesaver. While you are on a low life, this graft will periodically apply a buff to you, which grants life recovery rate as well as an endurance charge. 27% more increased life recovery rate. Now, this may not sound like a lot, but you notice it when you hit low life, and it is so handy. But mainly we just grab it for the lovely physical damage reduction and damage over time. Over here, this one's fun. This is Seize the Flesh with a spiking graft. And of course, a damage over time multiplier roll is important. When you use a war cry, this graft will cause spires of bone to erupt from the earth around you. When you use an exerted attack, these spires will explode to deal damage in an area around them, inflicting bleeding and impaling enemies. Amazing stuff. That is a lot of goddamn damage. So, essentially, we use our manual war cry, creates lots of stuff on the ground. We jump, they all explode for a large amount of damage and inflict bleeding. Amazing stuff. Very cool. And we can just repeat that. That's it. Back to your regular scheduled programming. Let's go over the skills now. Of course, our main ability is a LEAPSLAM of groundbreaking. This essentially is a version of LEAPSLAM that is designed to deal damage, big damage, and it does that very well. We have that linked to cruelty support, fortify support, awakened melee physical, awakened brutality, and volatility. All these gems go together to increase the element damage that we are outputting, and of course the maximum amount of physical damage, which of course converts into that sweet dot effect. Pretty easy to use. However, we do use it as the second instance of initiation, because our first instance of initiation is the normal LEAPSLAM. We have LEAPSLAM here as our primary travel skill, linked to faster attacks, Hex Touch, which is linked to vulnerability. So wherever we are initiating, whenever we're moving around a map, we are just LEAPSLAMing around incredibly quickly with our normal LEAPSLAM, and then we follow it up with a LEAPSLAM of groundbreaking, because the enemies will always have the vulnerability applied to them. Even more damage. Beautiful stuff. Over here on our other syncs link, we have our aura setup. We have enlightened support, with Herald of Purity, obviously, no brainer right there. We have Pride, of course. We have Flesh and Stone, which I generally use in Sand Stance for the added defense while I'm mapping, because honestly, we do enough damage. We don't need any more damage generally mapping, and then I switch to Blood Stance when we are bossing. We have Auto Exertion. Got stuck on that word. It's linked to Seismic Cry. This allows us to have a constant war cry going out, constant knockback, and increase of our area of effect. And tankiness. Amazing cry to have just going out constantly. Beautiful stuff. Over here, we have our cast when damage taken set up. We have it linked. We have it, sorry, level 11 linked to Molten Shell. This is a Val Molten Shell version. Now, this one will proc when we take damage, of course, but the Val version will not. This one, I suggest save it for any instance where you know you're going to get hit hard, or you are just kind of a little bit scared that you're going to die. Chuck it on, you'll be fine. Next, we have Immortal Call, which only procs for a single second, but that is 1 second of additional physical damage. Or less physical damage taken, rather. It's good. It's fine. Good stuff. And we have Blood Rage. This is our source of frenzy charges and additional leech. Down the bottom here, I have a Rallying Cry linked to Urgent Orders. This makes it so the Rallying Cry is very, very quick, and I usually pop this right after I land with a normal LEAPSLAM. If you also pop it right after a Seismic Cry, it'll add even more buffs, I suppose. And of course, will allow you to exert your next 5 attacks, which is why we needed the additional support to do additional 5 attacks. And down here we have War Banner. We pop this on the bosses, otherwise we just ignore it. That is pretty much it for the skills. Let's go ahead and look at the Ascendency first of all. Moving up first, we want to, of course, grab Gratuitous Violence. We want those explosions. We love those explosions. This is where we get those explosions. Moving on, we have Jagged Technique. This makes sure all bleeding we inflict is aggravated, and that is a massive boost of damage. Over here, we grab Weapon Master for 30% more damage with hits and ailments. That's an important one. Hits and ailments against enemies that are on low life while you are wielding an axe. Low life is less than 50% of their health. So, lots and lots of damage coming out. Now, where is this thing? Where is this thing? Here, right here. This bad boy is absolutely incredible. That didn't happen. Take 40% less damage from hits. 4 seconds after each hit you take, lose life equal to 40% of the damage taken from that hit. However, non-cluster, non-passage jewels socketed in your passive skill tree have no effect. The downside is kind of large, but the upside is incredible. We take 40% less damage from hits, and the additional life we lose later on is completely negligible, and we really don't notice it because of all our regen and our life leech going on. So we have a crazy setup here with clusters. I am going to go over the masteries first. This won't be like other build guides where I go over what you should get first in order and all such. No, I'm just going to go over the masteries. I'm going to go over some of the notables, why we get them, just a little brief explanation. If you are looking for further details, please see the build guide in the links below. All right, let's have a look. Now, we go over to this section here the prismatic skin area because we need to grab corrupted blood. Cannot be inflicted on you because we cannot use jewels, obviously. So this is our source of getting rid of corrupted blood. It's also nice to have a little bit extra maximum elemental resistances. Nice little bit of tank right there, effective HP. We of course grab unwavering stance. We're not going to be using evasion at all, and stuns really do suck. So we grab that bad boy. Over here, we're going to have iron reflexes so that it doesn't really matter if we use evasion or armor or both. It's all going to count as armor. Moving on over here, we grab the skills cost of life instead of 50% of mana cost. This is good to help mitigate the cost of our leap slam. It can get pretty costly, and we need to make sure we can leap slam of ground breaking at least 5 times in a row without any issues. Over here, very similar reason, we got cannibalistic right and increased mana reservation efficiency, allowing us to have all our auras and stances active at once. Over here, very, very important mastery here. This is a bleeding you inflict deals damage 15% faster. Absolutely insane boost to our bleed DPS there. Now, resolute technique. Don't really need to explain that one. Can't hit, can't miss, can't do crits. Easy stuff. Let's have a look at the clusters. For our first major cluster, we grab Battle Hardened for increased rating of our armor evasion and increased physical. Master of the Fundamentals to increase our physical damage. And of course, a little bit extra elemental resistances allows us to heal ourselves a little bit easier. Over here, we have Force Multiplier with another increase to physical damage and a very small chance to deal double damage. I haven't really ever noticed it, but it's cool to have. Up here we have Exposure Therapy, 5% damage over time multiplier and 30% chaos resistance against damage over time. That one doesn't really matter too much. It's the 5% to a damage over time multiplier that does a lot of heavy lifting in this build. A lot of heavy lifting. Same over here, 5% physical damage over time multiplier and increased bleeding duration. Now we have rend on every single one of our medium clusters because it's so good. Up here we have Flow of Life, 24% increased damage over time and 4% increased life and regeneration. Good stuff to have. Down here, of course, we have rend again, but this time we are having a Distorting Wounds, 25% increased damage with bleeding, 25% chance to blind with hits against bleeding enemies. Now we have another one down south, and that making that 50% chance to blind enemies that are bleeding. That will add another layer of defense to our character because that decreases their accuracy by 20%. Over here, we have Destructive Aspect. This is used for the Pride, has 50% increased mana reservation efficiency. It allows us to have more mana to work with all the auras that we have active. Going down to the bottom lot of clusters, we have some different ones down here. We have Feed the Fury, which is a 0.4% attack damage, least of life. Increased damage while leaping. I guess we are leaping as well. Leeching and leaping. 15% increased attack speed while leeching. Fuel the Fight, 8% increased attack speed, 0.4 attack damage, leeches mana, and 20% increased damage while leaping. That is 50% increased damage while leaping just from those two. Absolutely amazing. Now over here we have 20% increased attack damage, 6% increased attack speed, increased global accuracy, which is completely pointless to us, and 20% increased damage with ailments from attack speed. Ailments being bleeding. Amazing. Kind of weird that it only comes in wands and daggers, but yeah, just try to get a good secondary roll, I guess. Over here we have another Distorting Wounds and Rend, of course, and then another Flow of Life. Down here we have a different one, Rush with Death. This is a plus 5% damage over time multiplier with a recover 1% of life on kill. Obviously, the shield is not applicable to us. We were using armor and evasion. But 1% of life on kill is really cool. It's handy. Another layer of defense and sustain. Over here, we have another flow of life. As you can see, we are focusing very, very heavily on the damage over time portion of the build to allow us to deal, well, lots of damage over time. Let's move over to path of building real quick. Okay, this will be in the link in the description on the written guide, so please do check that out. Now, as you can see over here, in perfect, well, not perfect, but in normal combat, you will be having around 12 million DPS, and that's when they hit low life, mind you. You untick that, it's closer to 10 million DPS, which is still quite a lot. Now, I'm not too sure on this one, but if I understand this correctly, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, because it would be great to know. But the way I understand this is at max exert, at all the buffs that we are running, our possible max hit DPS is 63 million. Now, I don't know if that's correct or not, or that's how that works. But it says shows maximum hit for lined up all war cries. That's a lot. The perfect case scenario, we are capable of doing 63 million. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm no POB expert. Let's set that back to average here. Now, this is also without rage. We can generate rage. However, we are only generating one rage from this node right here. So it's not very fast. It's not very fast, so it is not part of the usual calculations. Where to go? But as you can see, the bulk of our damage is coming from our blade dot. We jump in, we stun, we jump off, they die. Very cool stuff. I'm having an absolute blast with this build. Moving back over to the game right now. Yeah, hopefully the showcases at the beginning and the end of the video go well. I hope to show off some cool gameplay. If you have enjoyed this video, however, please do drop a like, drop a subscribe. I do plan on doing a lot more Path of Exile content coming forward, and possibly some more streams if that is something that interests you. Until next time, bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.